Missing son returns home, then mom runs for help. He was calm, much calmer than he used to be, and much calmer than you'd expect from someone who had experienced 3 years of trauma. Still, she silenced her doubts. There was no way this wasn't her son. She had been looking for him for so long. This was all she ever wanted, but somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew she was living with a complete stranger. Nicholas Barclay was playing basketball with his friends one summer's evening when his life changed forever. The game ended and the boys returned home. All of them but Nicholas, who was never seen again. 3 years later, his mom, Sally, was sitting in the living room with her husband when the phone rang. It was a call no one saw coming. It was the police. They informed her that her son, Nicholas, had been found. There was a man in a small town in Spain who claimed to be her son. It was the miracle she and her whole family had been waiting for. Nicholas was immediately put on a plane to Texas. He was described as being delighted and overwhelmed to meet his parents at the time. He was accompanied on his travels by a police officer who was in charge of getting him into the hands of his family and the American authorities safely. Understandably, they had a lot of questions to ask him about what happened. Once he landed, he was embraced with tearful hugs from his family. It all felt too good to be true. And it was. The family embraced their son back into their home and resumed daily life. Time had taken so much away that they spent the days surrounded in his company. Nicholas had just begun to feel like he was part of the family when the police showed up at their door for questioning. He needed to report to them about what happened. His mom was beside him when he started talking. They discussed his turbulent relationship with his parents and the law before his disappearance. He was a troubled kid, got in fights and had a court hearing the day of his disappearance. He claimed that he didn't run away but got kidnapped. He said he was immediately put on a plane to Europe and that the police only found him, lost and confused after he escaped. But something was wrong. As Nicholas began to recount the traumatic events that happened to him, his mom noticed that he was rather emotionless, and his eyes. She didn't want to admit it at first, but his eyes were a different shade of color than before. As if reading her mind, Nicholas then told the officer that his kidnappers had medically changed his eye color to hide his identity. Was that possible? Lacking medical knowledge, Sally believed him and continued to pat his back and help him, along with the details of his dark past. But someone else was in disbelief of his story. The officer had never heard of any procedure that can change eye color so casually. However, with the reassurance of his mom's touch, he had no reason to believe that this boy was lying. Until something completely unexpected happened. It was 4 months since Nicholas had returned home. With each passing day, his mom began to notice different things about his personality. He was calm, much more calm than he used to be, and much more calm than you'd expect anyone to be who had just experienced 3 years of trauma. It was what she saw next that really made her suspicious about what was going on. Sally noticed that every now and again, Nicholas's light brown and blonde hair would become darker at the roots, and then as if by magic, it would return to his normal hair color. It was obvious to her that he was dyeing his hair. A sudden and dark realization occurred to her that this boy might not be her son. She called for help. Who exactly were they letting live in their house? Sally secretly went to investigator Charlie Parker. Once she updated him on the case, he carried out his own research and investigation behind Nicholas's story and confirmed that his story just didn't add up. But it was his different ears that confirmed his suspicions. Like fingerprints, ears don't change. Now, he knew he was dealing with an impostor. But if he wasn't Nicholas Barclay, then who was he? Astonishingly, the man who was posing as a 16-year-old boy was 23-year-old Frenchman, Frederick Burton. Also known as the Chameleon by the world's largest police organization, Interpol. Frederick was an infamous wanted criminal who impersonated missing children and assumed hundreds of different personalities over the course of his life. Nicholas Barclay being the latest. But why? Frederick confessed that he initially got the idea from the police officer who found him and mentioned that he had a striking resemblance to the missing boy. Although the family had their suspicions, the news that their missing son was an impostor came as a shocking and hard blow. How did they not realize this grown man wasn't their son? The family felt as though they had lost their son all over again, but it wasn't over yet. Once news broke of Frederick's crimes, he spun the story and told his own tale of events. He claimed that the Barclay family knew all along that he wasn't their son, and the reason they accepted him was due to covering up his murder, as he believed the parents were responsible for Nicholas's disappearance. A new investigation unfolded. Although it seemed ridiculous, Charlie Parker investigated the claim. He even went as far as digging up a hole in the family's backyard to look for evidence, but he found nothing. However, as his investigation continued, he found more and more mysterious circumstances surrounding the missing boy's family. Doubts began to form in his mind, but the case still remains unresolved.